1 year ago, in Canada, President Trump suggested re-inviting Russia to G7, stating openly that Crimea's annexation by Russia was partially justified, and that we should accept this fact. Under no condition can we agree with this logic. When it comes to the speculations around inviting Russia to the table, I would like to say this. First, the reasons why Russia was disinvited in 2014 are still valid. What is more, there are new reasons, such as the Russian provocation on the Azov Sea. Second, when Russia was invited to G7 for the first time, it was believed that it would pursue the path of liberal democracy, rule of law, and human rights. Is there anyone among us who can say with full conviction, not out of business calculation, that Russia is on that path? Today I will try to convince my interlocutors that it would be better to invite Ukraine, as a guest, of course, to the next G7 meeting to hear the opinion of the new president. I talked with him about it 2 days ago, and I know he would be very interested.
This is Donald Tusk, president of the European Council, wasting no time in condemning Trump's misguided idea to let Russia back into the G7. Tusk, who, as president of the European Union, represents the EU's 28 member states, was responding to Trump's comment only days ago suggesting Russia be readmitted.
It's come up. Should we put Russia back in? We spend a lot of time talking about Russia at those meetings, and they're not there. I think it would be a good thing if Russia were there, so we can speak directly, not have to speak all the, by telephone and other things. I think Russia should be a part of it because we're looking for world peace and other things, trade and other things, and it would be a lot easier to have Russia in where they had always been.
Because nothing quite says we're looking for world peace like rewarding a country that is actively attacking us. And while Trump is falling over himself to absolve Russia, not only of invading Crimea, but interfering in our own election, Tusk explained that there's no possible reason to warrant Russia's readmission given that nothing's changed, that Russia's still laying claim to their illegal annexation of Crimea. But Tusk then went a step further, suggesting that Ukraine, not Russia, come to the G7 next year as a guest in a show of solidarity with yet another victim of Russian aggression. And that puts the disconnect between Trump and the rest of the G7 nations on full display, since not only did Trump refuse to condemn Russia for its invasion of the Ukraine, but suggested that the Crimeans actually welcome the invasion, or that because many speak Russian, that the peninsula then belongs to Russia. To be clear, this is the president of the world's biggest democracy rationalizing a hostile takeover of part of a sovereign nation. Although, I guess we shouldn't be surprised that this is coming from the same guy who threw a fit on the White House lawn because the Prime Minister of Denmark told him, no, you can't have Greenland. But look, Trump refusing to stand up to Vladimir Putin is nothing new. Trump's entire presidency has been marred by the fact that his campaign cooperated with Russian officials interfering in our election. Because despite the fact that Trump tried on a daily basis to will into existence the idea that his campaign never colluded with Russia, that couldn't be further from the truth. Don Jr., Manafort, and Kushner met with a Kremlin-linked lawyer in Trump Tower after they'd been promised dirt on Hillary Clinton. Paul Manafort shared polling data with Konstantin Kilimnik, who has ties to Russian intelligence. Trump's national security advisor Michael Flynn discussed lifting sanctions on Russia, which, coincidentally, were imposed because of Russia's invasion of Crimea. And then there was that one other pesky little thing where Trump asked Russia on national television to hack Hillary Clinton's emails.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press.
And then hours later, they began doing just that. In fact, Robert Mueller and US intelligence have said that Russia is still planning on interfering in our election in 2020, while Republicans in Congress, under the leadership of Mitch McConnell, are refusing to allocate funding to beef up election security. It's almost like, by doing nothing, they stand to gain from all this. But while Russian intelligence is and was clearly illegal, clearly cause for alarm, because it's to benefit Trump and his campaign, he wouldn't dare speak out, because he doesn't value what's moral or just, he values loyalty. That's it. The point is that it's the European Union that has to lead on issues that the United States once led on. From international diplomacy to election security to military activity, Trump has entirely ceded America's leadership to the EU. And frankly, we're lucky that in a world where authoritarians seem to be gaining power, that the European Union still has leaders whose decisions aren't tainted by their own desperation to hold on to power, who value people over money, who can still tell the obvious difference between right and wrong. Trump might think that saying the inconvenience of making a phone call is enough to warrant Russia's readmission to the G7, but luckily, the G7 leaders aren't as willing to bend to Trump's every whim as Republicans in the United States.